And I got troubles and sorrows, but I wait till tomorrow. This is my taking.
Hello, this is Dr. Batts with the About That Life podcast, the podcast about life or living intentionally forever. Now, last month we started a series and we got such great response. We said, why stop now? So our Caring for the Caregiver series is one that has evolved into, I guess, the gift that keeps on giving, because the more we talk about it amongst people, amongst friends, amongst the team at 10 TV, we learn that there's so many voices that we need to hear. Well, today we're going to hear from a voice that not only is a caregiver, but also is receiving care. We have Ms. Pat Moore, who is a champion for caregivers all across the country, if not the region, in a sense to really tell them that self-care is not selfish. She'll discuss the strategies that she's employed and the difficulties she's had. Prior to us coming on, she had talked about some challenges with, a shift in the healthcare system that she's in and various things. But she championed that. She took that setback as a setup for a comeback. So, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Today is a good day.
Yes, ma'am.
Today is a very good day, so I'm doing good today.
Ma'am. Now, I'd be remiss if I didn't introduce, I would say, the man behind the mystery who navigates all of this. My I won't say guest host, because we're doing this together. My co-host, Mr. Williams. Let the folks know a little bit about you if they didn't see our first episode.
All right. Well, okay, good doctor. Nothing to it but to do it. And as I always say, I'm tickled brown to be here. And I tell people if they have a challenge with that, perhaps it's an issue of diversification. Yes. Okay. My name is Derek Williams, and I am the founder and owner of Group Innovation and Diversity Training Associates. It's a multidiscipline consulting and training company focusing on cross-cultural awareness, organizational development, human relations education, race relations, all of those touchy-feely issues that are so essential and important to our country, particularly now. And this is an area that I am particularly interested in, not only because of my own personal involvement in the caregiving industry in terms of loved ones, but I think it's one of those responsible areas that we all need to be involved in making the area that we left a little better. And nothing greater than the subject of Alzheimer's, dementia, and a multiplicity of other maladies that we get struck with and impact on often, unfortunately, African Americans a little more than other groups, and for a number of social factors and reasons. And so my interest is I'm giving back to the community. And of course, the African American Network is committed to empowering our community. And if I can be a part of that, then nothing to it but to do it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, I love that lead, and it touched on so many different aspects, whether it's the social determinants of health, healthcare disparities across cultural lines, and we'll touch on some of those a bit later. But, ma'am, tell us your story. Tell us your story.
So my story is that I became a caregiver for my spouse about 4 or 5 years ago. He was having some health issues, and they didn't go well. And so I had to sort of step in. I was sort of watching from the sidelines, so to speak, but after a hospitalization, it became aware to me that you need to be a little bit more engaged. And so I stepped in and became the caregiver for him. And, it was all about really advocating for his health, talking to the doctors and saying, no, we need to look at this as well as that. And what about this? Questions that he just hadn't been asking. And so that was, the beginning of the caregiving episode for me and him. It's interesting, though, that you said Alzheimer's, because I think God sort of prepares you for what's yet to come. Yes, for 7 years, I did an event as part of my business that brought awareness to caregivers of Alzheimer's and dementia patients. Right. Yes. It was called the Fabulous Fashion Show, because I was into fashions. And so we did this just advocating for just making people aware of caregivers, because it was called the longest day. Because as a caregiver, you don't have an 8-hour shift. it is a 24/7 road.
Absolutely.
And so, that's what I found myself doing now. And I think that prepared me for just being aware of just how engaged you have to be. And you definitely have to give yourself some care along the lines, because you can't pour from an empty cup. You got to have you got to go and have your own self-care days. Fast forward to now, I am the person getting the care. So, yeah, I think all of this prepared me to say, okay, this is going to be your lot in life. It's going to be your journey. And so I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it because I know what to do. What do you say? Nothing but to do it?
Yes. Ain't nothing to it.
And nothing to it but to do it. And so here I am. I'm in two roles. I'm receiving care and I'm giving care. And it's a journey. And some days it can be a challenge, but you have to be fluid.
No.
And go day by day, almost minute by minute.
Yes, ma'am. Now, if you can, talk about that dualistic role, because in our last episode, Mr. Williams highlighted the kind of obligation that, from a cross-cultural standpoint, African Americans, kind of pull that burden. I can speak to when my mother was caring for my father. I mean, she would forego the things that she needed to do for her, and fast forward, then something happened with her and it became more difficult. So talk about how you found a way to balance, I guess is a good word to use, that tough space, understanding that obligation that you felt.
So for me, it was a matter of just giving yourself some grace. That's a new term I've learned, because, and a friend helped me understand that there are times where you're going to be frustrated because you wanted to do this and you need to do that, but none of that was seeming to work out for you. So you just have to say, okay, let's just look at what do we have in front of us right now. What do we got to do right now? All right, let's just do that right now.
First thing first.
Yeah, first let's tackle this. How you eat an elephant? One bite at a time.
Yes.
That's right.
Yes.
So let's just take, okay, this is what we got to do first. And then once we get that accomplished, what's next? And don't let it rattle you too much. Just sort of go into it smoothly. And people that are getting care and people that are receiving care are not always the most pleasant people. And you have to understand that that's what's happening. It's not anything about you. It's just about them at that moment. Even you as a person receiving it or you as the person giving it. It's okay to say, let me breathe. All right. And balance for me is just, okay, let me just step back for a minute. Let me breathe. Let me evaluate this. And how are we going to tackle this elephant?
Yes. Right. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I think so often we see our role, 1, 2, 3, have to do this, have to do that. And often we don't know what to do. We don't have a guidebook. And so we have to take these challenges on a as it occur basis. Mm-hmm. For you, the news, when you realize that, and I realize that you are being focused on now, but as far as the care that you were giving your husband, did you courageously walk into this? Did you feel that, hey, this is too much for me? What was the thinking process you used when you recognized that?
For me giving him his care, it was a courageous walk into it, because this was something that it was like, I got to do this. All right. I want him to be around for a long time. There's a 15-year age gap on us.
No.
And so I felt like I can do this. All right. I was meant to be here in his life at this point in time. All right. I know how to navigate the healthcare system, even the VA healthcare system, because that's what he was in. But as my side life or my main life, I am an insurance broker. So I knew how to navigate the healthcare system. All right. So I know what to say. I know how to say it. I know what to go and ask for. So let me at it. I was courageous from his caregiving standpoint. Now, when the tables turned, it was a whole different ball game, because now it was me. And even though I knew it was me. And so now that became a little scary.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. That's very insightful. And since it is a different ball game, from his standpoint, I know he's not here to speak for himself, and how did he pick up the bat in terms of being there for you? Was it as easy?
No, it wasn't. He knew it was something he had to do, but you could tell from day one going in, he was overwhelmed. And he was also afraid. Now, it took him a little while to tell me he was afraid, but he did finally come and say, this is going to be all right. I know that now. He said, but at initial stages, I felt like you were being snatched away from me.
Wow.
He said, and so that was scary for me because, you know, you had been my caregiver and now my caregiver is being snatched away from me. What are we going to, and you could tell just going in that he was like, overwhelmed with this. He was afraid. It took my son to help me because I was a little frustrated. Like, why is he doing all this stuff? What's happening? And my son said, Mama, you got to give him some grace. He is not accustomed to this and he's afraid. He said, and you know, he's a man's man. And so he's never going to say, I'm afraid. It did take him a while, but he finally said, yeah, we're going to be all right, babe. But yeah, I was afraid. He said, I'm not so afraid anymore, but I wasn't afraid initially. So it was an adjustment on the other side. For me, not so much so, but for him, it was like, this is new for me. What are we doing?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Now, when you think about that fear, right, was it the fear of the outcome of the condition, or was it the fear of not knowing if I would be able to, as you keeping it in the baseball, step up to the plate and do the things? Or was it a mix of both?
I think it was a fear for him of the outcome and the not knowing. I think it was that because as we began to now be able to talk about it, he said, well, you know, I kept playing back in my mind that doctor's initial conversation with us. He said, and I kept telling myself, the doctor never said she was going to die. The doctor never said she was going to die. So that was what he was dealing with. And that was, to me, I thought, wow, you were that deep in? He says, yeah. He said, because I felt like my wife has been snatched from me. He said, but I kept having to replay, the doctor never said she's going to die.
Oh.
He said, and then once I was able to get that resolved, then I knew I could step up to it. Like, you know, this is a Vietnam vet. He's like, oh, yeah, all right. I got this. Yeah.
Hey.
I got this. And so now watching him, I was sharing earlier today, we had an event this weekend, and he said, you know, after today, you're done because you're going to wear yourself out. And so I said, okay, for me, it's a case of having to listen. You got to surrender. You know, when you're the one getting the care, you have to have a point where you surrender. And so I've gotten to that point now where it's like, okay, I can surrender and say, all right, if you say this is enough for me, I'm going to take it and say, okay, I'm gonna relax. Because I know during those weeks of chemo, it just wears me out. So, yeah. It's been quite an interesting dynamic to watch, you know, but yeah, it's going to be all right. You just have to say, okay, how are we going to go about today's date?
Yeah.
We're going to take this every minute at a time and see what's going to happen. But yeah, so for him, it was definitely the case of not knowing what the outcome was going to be.
Yeah. Mr. Williams, I know you had talked a little earlier about structuring the day and kind of this daily routine. Can you just, you know, unpack that and how you go about talking to folks about that, Strap?
Well, yeah, you know, life is spontaneous, and we often, you know, measure the temperature and which way the wind is blowing, and we become accustomed to that. And so these medical and life-changing challenges, they challenge us to get things in order. And that's very difficult when life is a spontaneous, I roll with the punches kind of thing. So structure is essential because you can look forward not only to tomorrow, but have some procedural steps to take in order to be more efficient and effective. And often that takes training. If that's not part of your routine normal life, you know, a lot of us live on the spin of a dime, you know, and these conditions cause us to need more structure in our life. Structure is the nail that we can hang our hat on or purse. Okay, it gives us an outline, and outlines are essential to helping us. Well, let me step to the left, let me step to the right. I've seen that hole before, and so it is essential. And so structure is one of the foundational elements of care for ourselves and, of course, for others.
I totally agree with that.
Yeah. And I was going to say, and that's why I wanted him to unpack that structure, because now you're going to give folks a toolkit and you're going to build it out, because at the beginning you said, I was an insurance, I know how to do X, Y. So what skills from that could you give folks that might not have the background in structure, planning, contracting, navigating systems, process, all those things that I think equipped you to be the caregiver pretty easily. But what would you do, or what could you tell someone to really help them articulate that path?
First thing was a calendar. And you think, okay, that's not a big deal. I had a calendar already. So now I just sort of expanded that calendar because now it's got to have on there, it's got to have appointments. I needed to have everything on that calendar where I could go and look to say, what are we supposed to be doing today? All right. Now you may have to deviate some, but what does today look like? In terms of the medical component, I always say, know what your insurance is about. People never read their insurance evidence of coverage documents. Why? It's too thick. They never even read the short version, the summary of benefits. Why? It's got too much jargon that we don't understand.
Yeah.
There are tools today. You said it earlier about AI. There are tools today on these smartphones we carry around. You can ask that phone and it will tell you what that means. Understand what your coverage is. You got to have an understanding. There's a scripture that says, my people perish from lack of knowledge. You gotta know. If you don't know, you can't fight.
That's right.
All right. So you gotta know. That's what my thing was. I knew a lot of it. And so I just sort of jumped in more, especially from the veterans perspective, because I knew the civilian insurance. I knew how the civilian world worked. I needed to now understand how the military world worked. So I educated myself. So that way, when I went in as his caregiver, I could speak their language. I could speak to what they understood that now I am learning.
Absolutely.
You need to have a time where you just say, okay, I'm going to turn off my phone. I'm going to step away, and this is now my time because I've got to regenerate, and you got to do it. Even if you have to alter it by maybe a day or maybe 10 minutes or maybe an hour, you got to do it. I call it my self-care. Saturdays was my day.
All right.
It was self-care Saturday. My sister said, I never understood what you meant by that, but now I do. I said, yeah, that was my day to disconnect from everything and everybody so that I could regenerate myself, and now we can go tackle the rest of the week.
Absolutely.
So you have to have that as part of your structure. But for me, it was just having that calendar, because that calendar kept me on focus. Yeah, even with my appointments, his appointments, because now we've got to make sure that they don't overlap. Okay, because now I got appointments. I've got to be at his, he's got to be at mine.
Gotcha.
So now we go look at that calendar per week to say, okay, who's got what? Okay, do we need to alternate this? If somebody's got to go with you, somebody's got to go with me, how are we going to do that? So that calendar was a lifesaver. We just expanded it. Now it's real big.
Wow. Well, you're absolutely a super trooper. I mean, there's no question about it. You mentioned briefly, you said your son had pointed some things out to you. Today we find that in the caregiving arena, we're not only taking care of loved ones, but we find out we have to take care of ourselves, and then other family members. Are they active participants? Was your son involved, and how involved was he in assisting?
He was very involved once we found out. Not so much, he was with my husband, he was more, what do you need from me, mama, kind of thing.
Okay.
But once it became me, I think everybody was sort of surprised because I was the matriarch, the strong one, and now she's the one that's needing our care.
Yeah.
My son stepped up. He's our chef on Sundays. Okay. He cooks dinner every Sunday, so he stepped into that role. He's my person who takes me for my shots during chemo. So he stepped into that role. And then I didn't realize my friends and support system was so phenomenal. I have friends that bring food every week. I have a friend a day bringing food. And it's like, okay, let me make sure I'm going to be at home. I have friends that have donated money for food. I have coworkers. To me, I realized, oh God, I didn't know I was this loved. So I have friends that have just stepped up. And so from that perspective, sometimes you don't really realize all the people that are part of your network and resources until they have to step up to the plate.
Absolutely.
In my case, I am very thankful and very fortunate that all of my group have really, they've overwhelmed me because I had no idea that these people cared this much about me.
Wow. Well, I'm not surprised, Miss Pat. You can feel your affection and love and the energy that you bring. The fact that things have been flipped, and now the focus is on you. I think your husband is very fortunate to have found you, or you have found him. You found each other.
Yeah.
And that's what it takes. This impact of caring for one another, unfortunately, not many families, not everyone can do it. And I think acknowledging that they may not have the skills, may not have the resources, be it financial or emotional, it does require a collective. And you certainly represent showing the family working together as a total unit. And I think we're very fortunate to have someone with your knowledge, as the doctor said, and be able to help others outline and structure their life in being more accountable and taking care of loved ones and friends. So we're very fortunate to have you. You have the official title of Super Trooper.
I'll take it. I'll take it. And as a woman of faith, it takes your faith too. You can't throw that part to the side.
Absolutely.
I spend a lot of time saying, "Oh Lord, help me," or just praying and saying, "Oh Lord, give me strength," or just and that's part of my regimen too.
All right.
Is in the morning, I got to spend some time with the Lord because I have no idea what this day is about to bring. So, let's spend some time talking to God, and then everything else, He would just sort of make it work out.
That's right.
Yeah. So that's part of it too.
And perhaps I was a little remiss in not talking about the spiritual aspect. And Doctor, you asked about the cross-cultural element.
Right.
And for so many African Americans, we would not make it through the day without our belief systems and having a superordinate goal and a superordinate God that we can call on when we don't have anyone else to call on. And that's what makes us unique. We have been very responsive from the days of enslavement to the present. The God has been central in our lives, but central in our lives before we have arrived here.
Yeah.
And as evident by what you're sharing today, is still central. And again, I think that's a very important element, and one that perhaps sometimes needs to be at the top of the list.
Absolutely.
Well, Mrs. Moore, this has been a wonderful discussion, and the tools and strategies that you've provided us and our viewers are certainly things that are going to help, right? Whether it's understanding how to build your calendar, appreciating what your insurance actually says, and finally building that on a foundation of faith, I think are three key elements that no matter what situation an individual goes into, they'll come out a bit better on the other side.
Absolutely.
Anything else you want to leave the folks before we close out?
Just hang in there. Just, hang in there. Take it one day at a time. Sometimes it can be overwhelming, but just dig into that inner strength and say, I got this. I got this.
Right. Well, as I mentioned, this is Dr. Batts with the About That Life podcast, a podcast about life. But when we live, we also have to give. And understanding your role as a caregiver is one that is a challenge. But three keys, whether that's building a proper calendar, understanding what your health courage is, and finally embracing your faith, whatever that may be, to help you get through the tough times, are things that can allow you to not only survive, but also thrive. So we close out this episode encouraging you to continue to live intentionally forever.
And I got troubles and sorrows, but I wait till tomorrow. This is my day.